Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, takeover news, general news and update show. And it feels like the first time in a while that I have positive news to start a live stream with. Good news, positive news, but not negativity FC today. And you know what? It's so sad that in the last 2 weeks, there's been nothing positive to say, that whenever I've done a video with good news, I've had to put good news, positive news in the title. But we do have positive news regarding Jadon Sancho. We do have news on the takeover. Now, I'm not sure if this story is a little PR game from the Glazers. We will get into that. We also have Phelan. Now, Mike Phelan, if you don't know who he is, he was here under Ollie and under Ragnick. He was here in that Ollie Ragnick season. Obviously, wasn't here really under Ten Hag. And he was a coach at United, kind of left before Ten Hag came in. He did an interview to kind of reveal, the big dressing room problems that went on at United and sort of talk about, actually, these leaks that the squad didn't like Ronaldo were true. And the reason the squad didn't like Ronaldo was because Ronaldo demanded high standards from them, which I think is absolutely crazy. But I want to get into the positive story. I want to get into the opening story, and then we will get into some more news as well. Big up everybody in the chat. Looking well, Alice. Thank you, Gaz, as well. And good news, shock, breaking news, massive breaking news. We have a story about Man United that's not negative this week. We've gone from Sancho statements, we've gone from Arsenal loss, we've gone from the Antony situation to inviting a pedo to more fallout. But we finally have something nice, which is literally that Jadon Sancho has deleted a statement that he made after Eric Ten Hag comments about his training. But it's positive, okay? That is deleted. When we were linked to El Ghazi last night, I was fearing the worst, people. We were linked to El Ghazi last night. I was sitting there, I was like, Nate, Sancho, you knob. I thought this is it. Sancho did not make up with Ten Hag yesterday. I was like, his tweet is still pinned. He didn't make up with Ten Hag yesterday. We're going to get El Ghazi. I was thinking, Sancho, you big idiot. I'm saying Antony is suspended. Now is your big chance. Swallow your pride. Make up with Ten Hag. Please, Sancho. Please, Sancho. And look, he's deleted his statement. That doesn't mean they've made up. Doesn't mean he's going to be right back in the squad. But it means that's a step in the right direction. Wan-Bissaka found his way out back in the squad, although he never did a statement. Sancho will find his way back in the squad. I think the Antony situation is going to make it easier for Sancho. And I think if you're Sancho now, you've realised you've got a big chance. Because I tell you this now, if Sancho was going to see that Antony was suspended and still not make up with Ten Hag and allow us to sign El Ghazi, then that is unforgivable from Jadon Sancho. That is unforgivable. For me, I would not want to see El Ghazi on the right wing. We might as well play Pellistri on the right wing. I didn't quite get that. And I mean, some idiots are saying, oh my God, it's all Ten Hag's fault. I want Ten Hag out because he wants to sign El Ghazi. Ten Hag doesn't want to sign El Ghazi. It's not Ten Hag's fault that Antony's been accused of things and Sancho's being all on the internet. It's not Ten Hag's fault. Ten Hag doesn't want El Ghazi. It's just we can't sign anyone. He's a free agent. And I see people turning on Ten Hag because we're linked to El Ghazi, which for me makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, you should be turning on those above Ten Hag, thinking, well, actually, if Ten Hag had his way, we would have gone into the season with another attacker. So we wouldn't have been linked to El Ghazi in the first place. That's the way I see it as well. Alex makes a good point here. Sancho clearly has some issues, not just work hard and have a chat with the gaffer. You have to make do until January. Yeah, look, there's still problems going on between Jadon Sancho and Ten Hag. I think that's a given. I think we all know that. I think those are issues that need to be worked on, no doubt in my mind. But I think, it's a step in the right direction. I think there's a chance he could go in January, could go in the summer. But you know what? Sancho's got two options now. He's got to work hard. He's got to realise, you know what? Ten Hag, look what he did with Wan-Bissaka. I'm going to do that guy. I'm going to prove him wrong. He's either going to work hard and be motivated and realise there's a massive chance for him without Antony there on the right-hand side. And look, I think Jadon Sancho is better on the right than the left. We've mostly deployed him on the left, but I think he's better on the right because he can be more direct and he doesn't have to think as much. He can just put those crosses in, whereas he doesn't have to think about shooting. And I think he's just better at crossing the ball. With Hojlund's box presence, I think Sancho will be a lot better on the right-hand side. And I think this is a big opportunity for Sancho, and he could get a run of games. And I think, you know what? I think Ten Hag's been good to Sancho. I think that, allowing him to have 3-4 months break to sort of work out his mental health and stuff. I think that everything Ten Hag has done for Sancho, I think Ten Hag's doing it in his best interest. You know, I'm going to drop you for not training hard enough. And this isn't me scapegoating you. This isn't me having an agenda against you. It's that I know you are such a fantastic, brilliant player, but you aren't going to be that fantastic, brilliant player unless you show these levels in training. You show these levels every single day. I think that Ten Hag believes everything he does for Sancho's for the best. And look, there's obviously issues still going on with Ten Hag and Sancho. It's not going to be fixed by one conversation. It's something that's going to be resolved, especially because we know that Ten Hag doesn't forgive people easily. But it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's definitely sort of a nice story to, I'd say, wake up to, if that's the word. Like, actually some positive news as well for a change, because I feel like we've had so much negativity as well. If Sancho is serious about leading, he needs to put himself back in the shop window. Otherwise, who would buy him currently? Well, the thing about Sancho is if he was going to go on strike and not talk to Ten Hag and keep his statement up, he'd be an idiot, because he'd have to wait all the way till January as well. So, you know, he'd be looking at himself like, was it really worth making myself not play till January when I would have got chances because Anthony's kind of on mutual leave? You know, it'd be absolutely crazy. Now, there are some takeover stories going on. The Glazers have confirmed that the club is still up for sale. Is this a stop manipulation game? We will talk about that. We've got other stories coming out regarding Manchester United. Pelistri set to get a new contract. I want to get into some of the things that Mike Phelan has said as well. But I really want to just have a quick chat about Ten Hag. I see a lot of people turning on Ten Hag, being a bit negative about Ten Hag. And I think, you know, we have every right to criticise Ten Hag. He's not so mean to criticism, but I'm going to tell you sort of why I'm not Ten Hag out. And I think being Ten Hag out 4 games into the season is a slight overreaction, because the rationale for being Ten Hag out is he brought Mason Mount, he brought about their course. That is the rationale for being Ten Hag out, which for me doesn't make sense, because that's not Ten Hag's job. But this was worrying, and I said this last night when I thought we were going to get El Ghazi. Just to clarify, we ain't signing El Ghazi. Good. But if that was the case, because this was said last night, El Ghazi, Evans, Weghorst, Reguilon, Butland, Bayendier could make out 6 of Ten Hag's signings, 6 out of 10 of Ten Hag's signings in 2023. 6 players that wouldn't start for any Premier League team above 15th. Now, I see people are very critical of Ten Hag and his talent ID, but that isn't the biggest issue here. Yes, you know, Ten Hag is always going for Ajax players he knows, and some of the players he's signing are sceptical. But Pep Guardiola signed Calvin Phillips, who's been crap. Pep Guardiola signed Benjamin Mendy. Pep Guardiola signed Angelino and Nolito. You know, Pep Guardiola signed his questionable players as well. And he's got those at City around him as well. And look, Ten Hag, the Mount thing, I think the obsession with Mount, I didn't think he ticks all the boxes, but sometimes just about the manager. But it's not, the biggest problem isn't Ten Hag's talent ID. People are like, I'm Ten Hag out because he wants to sign El Ghazi. I don't get that. I really don't get that. Being Ten Hag out because he wants to sign El Ghazi, I think is being stupid. And I don't like to call you guys stupid if we have a difference in opinion, but I think it is stupid because if you actually think about it, there's a reason El Ghazi, Johnny Evans, and Weghorst are going to United. That isn't because Ten Hag really wants Reguilon, Johnny Evans, whoever you want to call it, El Ghazi, Wout Weghorst. It's because the players that Ten Hag wants, he's not allowed to get. And I said this, you know, if we're going to go on Ten Hag's talent ID and these signings here, should we actually, rather than criticise Ten Hag, which, yes, you can criticise Ten Hag's liking for players, should we actually be saying, well, if we had a proper director of football, we wouldn't be making these better panic signings and loans? People don't realise that it's not Erik Ten Hag's job to choose who we buy and sell. He's the manager. He should approve who we buy and sell. He's got to have a say in it. But it's the scouts and the recruitment team to find the player that perfectly fits Ten Hag's system, what he will implement, and get that player agreed by Erik Ten Hag. It's not Ten Hag's job to choose. It has been Ten Hag's job to choose because the board is incompetent. If United had a proper sporting director of football, we'd probably have done a better loan deal than Wout Weghorst. Do you know what I mean? We probably would have found some loopholes to sell better, buy better, all of that. So I think Ten Hag is choosing often to buy players that are Eredivisie that he's familiar with because he cannot trust the board and the Glazers and the United recruitment to fix to do what it needs to do. And I think that, you know, he's not been given the funds to fix an urgent problem. But the other thing I want to talk about in regards to Ten Hag is this. You know, I see people turning on Ten Hag saying, "Oh, Ten Hag's rubbish, Alice. Oh, he's making us sign Mount and Anthony. Oh, it's all Ten Hag's fault." And it's like, let's listen to this. Ten Hag wanted Cody Gakpo to replace Ronaldo in January, but he was refused the funds. Now, Cody Gakpo is a versatile forward. He's never going to be the long-term 9, but he was a signing in January that would be a versatile forward. And if we had a Cody Gakpo right now in the United squad, could play on the left, could play on the right, could play in the middle, we'd be in a much better position. I think he's been good at Liverpool. Some people say he's been pony. I think he's been good, and I think he would have been more suited to our system, the Liverpool system. Ten Hag couldn't get Cody Gakpo, despite personal terms being agreed, despite a deal being this close. Ten Hag could not get Cody Gakpo. He was told he could only do a loan deal. So when Ten Hag was told he could only do a loan deal in January. What did Ten Hag do? Ten Hag went to the Glazers and said, João Felix available on loan, I want him. So he can't get Gakpo, and Gakpo goes to arch rivals Liverpool to rub salt in the wounds. He goes, okay, well, loan deal, João Felix. But that loan deal's too expensive. So imagine selling Ronaldo. We made, because of the money we saved in Ronaldo's wages and everything, we saved 25 million from getting rid of Ronaldo. Gakpo was 35 million. Gakpo was already pre-agreed from last summer. Gakpo walks to arch rivals Liverpool. United have 25 million there to get a loan deal done. And yes, to bring in João Felix on a 6-month loan would have cost us £17 million, which is absolute extortion from Atletico Madrid. And Chelsea are the only club that would pay that kind of money for players. And look, but, you know, Ten Hag wanted João Felix. He said, I want this player on loan then. No, he's too expensive. We're not bringing him on loan. Right, the max you can get is a player on loan for 5 million. There was no one. There was Weghorst. There was probably someone just as bad as Weghorst, and Ten Hag went, well, look, Weghorst was good at the World Cup. He can press. He can do the bare minimum. And we got Weghorst. And people say, well, that's all Ten Hag's fault. Weghorst was not in Ten Hag's top 3. He was not in Ten Hag's top 3. I mean, Ten Hag actually really wanted Gonzalo Ramos in January, reportedly, but we were never going to have the funds for that. Then we look at Ten Hag's top 3 centre-backs. Ten Hag never intended to make the Johnny Evans deal permanent. I spoke to someone, I spoke to my source actually about this, and he said that the plan was to never let Johnny Evans stay beyond pre-season. Someone I spoke to that's given me good information, that told me the Pavard news before it got broken by Romano, he said that Ten Hag never had the intention to keep Johnny Evans beyond the season. Ten Hag wanted a right centre-back because of Varane's injury record. He wanted Kim Min-jae. There was talks with Kim Min-jae. He had actually convinced, and people forget this, and I know this from a top source, Ten Hag had actually convinced Kim Min-jae to join the club. Kim Min-jae would have chosen Man United over Bayern if we could have given him confirmation that we would have triggered his release clause, which is crazy. You think this brilliant right centre-back, all you got to do is trigger a 40 million release clause, and Man United went to Napoli. We can't guarantee that. Why did Man United go to Napoli? You can't guarantee that. Because Ten Hag was told he's not allowed a centre-back unless Maguire is sold, which was ridiculous. So Ten Hag wanted Kim Min-jae. He went to Bayern. It swiftly focused to Pavard and Todibo as his options. Ten Hag went to the board. Ten Hag made it very, very clear to the board, please sign me a centre-back. I need a right centre-back. Varane's injury record, guess what? 3 games into the season, Varane is injured. Who would have guessed? You know, board ignore him. They say, look, you can get Johnny Evans on a free, experienced club legend. Like, would any other club in the top 10 of the Premier League be signing Johnny Evans on a free? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And people will say, oh, he's brought Johnny Evans in. We didn't want Johnny Evans. He wanted these 2 players. He didn't want Weghorst. He didn't want Johnny Evans. He wanted these 2 players. He wasn't given the funds to do that. So before you turn on Ten Hag for bringing in this player and that player and this player and that player and, oh, Ten Hag's bringing in all these crap players and making us worse, actually realise it's not Ten Hag bringing in the crap players, and actually look at the situation and think, isn't it more concerning that Man United have had to do 4 panic signings in the last 9 months? 4 panic signings in the last 9 months because of lack of organisation, because of us refusing to fill holes and spend money to fill holes. The panic signings we shouldn't be taking out on Ten Hag because they're panic signings. Shouldn't we be worrying that Ten Hag's been given 4 panic signings because those above refuse to spend? And people say, look, he has spent, and yes, Ten Hag has had money. And, like, you know, yes, we overpaid a bit for Hojlund. Yes, we are incapable of selling. But again, that's not Ten Hag's fault. That is the board's fault around. Look, Ten Hag is obviously open to criticism. I don't think he should have put so much effort into Mason Mount. But I don't see that as a reason to turn on him. I think, you know, Ten Hag didn't want this as well. So Ten Hag also went to the board this summer, and he pleaded for another attacking signing. Ten Hag knew that Hojlund was inexperienced and kind of got the impression he was going to get 2 forwards in the summer. When Ten Hag realised that, they did agree Greenwood U-turn, because Ten Hag was told reportedly in July that Greenwood would be back. Ten Hag was then told in August, okay, Greenwood isn't going to be back. So we did a Greenwood U-turn. We got Hojlund. Ten Hag was like, we've got a lack of experience. Martial's practically a walk-in breadstick. Do you know what I mean? Like, just his legs could snap at any minute. You know, Ten Hag wanted another attacker. He went to the board. The United Muppeteers said this. They have really good inside information on United. And the board just was like, no, go away. The board deliberately, the board, the owners, dragged out this Amrabat deal to the last day, to deadline day, to a loan, to stretch it, to make the mick, to say, oh, we're poor, we're so poor, poverty FC, you know, we're so poverty. Shut up. You're not poverty. If you were Property FC, you wouldn't be spending 500 grand to do a 3-day trip to London, Joe and Abraham. Shut your mouth. We're not Property FC, but Man United will look at me. I'm so poor. I'm so poor. With this Amrabat deal, we're so poor. I tell you this now, if we'd have got battered 5-0 to Forest, we would have paid 30 million for Amrabat then and there. Stop this I'm so poor game, because last season we're so poor, we can't buy anyone. Drop 150 million on Anthony and Casemiro, and it's just not to spend. So United were like, we can't get an attacker, we're so poor, it's so hard to get Amrabat in, we're not going to have time to get you an attacker. Really dramatic, let's lay Amrabat out to deadline day so we don't have to do anything, la-di-da. That is exactly what Manchester United did. So people will say, oh, I hate Ten Hag, I want him out, he's bringing El Ghazi, Evans in, of course, he's ruining this club. He didn't want Evans, he wanted Kim Min-jae. He doesn't want El Ghazi. It wasn't his fault what happened with Anthony and Sancho, and Valdegos wasn't his third choice. Had we signed Cody Gakpo in January, and had we got Kim Min-jae this summer, and we'd have our squad right now, let's be real. Okay, if we signed Amrabat when Ten Hag wanted him, and we had Amrabat fit and ready for the start of the season, if we had Kim Min-jae in as a centre-back instead of Maguire, and we signed Cody Gakpo, who probably could have played centre-forward those opening games of the season, allowing Rashford to play on the left, do you think Man United would be in a much better position? Absolutely. Had we had Cody Gakpo, Kim Min-jae and Amrabat in those opening games of the season, like Ten Hag wanted, I don't think we would have lost to Arsenal. I think we would have played better because Rashford could have played on the left wing the opening 2 games where we were shocking. I think we'd be in a better position. And people will say, look, the Glazers spent money. Yes, the Glazers spent money on Ten Hag. But for me, you actually have to look at this and go, yeah, we can criticise Ten Hag, we can be suspect about Ten Hag, but we're 4 games into the season, and everyone I see turning on Ten Hag is turning on him because they don't like that he signed Mount, because they don't like that he signed this player, they don't like that he signed that player. And in my personal opinion, I think we should look at it and go, well, actually, if you don't like the players we signed and the direction we're going in, shouldn't we look at actually who's really in charge of signing the players? Shouldn't we actually look at the fact that actually we've had to make 4 panic signings in 9 months under Ten Hag? You know, do you think Ten Hag would be making those panic signings at Man City? No, because Man City would go and spend the 60 million he needs to replace Ronaldo when he leaves in January. You don't get that at United. And this is why I will back Ten Hag. I'm critical of Ten Hag. If he plays Bruno on the right-hand side, I'm very critical of that. But the reason I back Ten Hag, and the reason I'm really going to back Ten Hag, is purely for the fact that I know changing Man United goes beyond manager changes. We could bring Pep Guardiola in tomorrow. We could sack Ten Hag and we could bring Pep Guardiola in tomorrow. We'd have one good season under Pep Guardiola where they'd spend a lot of money on Pep. Pep would get us back into the top 4 looking good. That second season we have under Pep Guardiola, he gets 1 or 2 signings he wants. He's left hung out to dry. There's 4 problems in the squad. We address 2 of the problems and lead him going into the season with 2 problems, big open gaping hole. That's what we do. And, you know, Pep Guardiola wasn't good in his first season at Man City. People forget this. He scraped fourth under immense criticism. But Man City went, good, got us in the top 4 first season. We're going to prop her back in the second season. Man United go back to our first season, gets us in the top 4. We'll give him a little bit of what he wants, and then we'll do panic signings if an emergency happens because we're not spending above X amount. So I'm very passionate about backing Ten Hag, and I will stick up for Ten Hag because I know that it doesn't matter if we sacked Ten Hag and we brought in Pep Guardiola. This club will not get to the very top until there are some serious changes made that go beyond the manager. Because we've had so many managers under Sir Alex Ferguson, and Sir Alex Ferguson was literally a miracle worker. You're not going to get a miracle worker like Sir Alex Ferguson, especially in the day and age of the money that is now you need to spend to acquire players. Chelsea have spent $1 billion in 3 windows. You can sack Ten Hag tomorrow. You could bring in De Zerbi, you could bring in Ange, you could bring in Pep Guardiola, and people are saying, oh, but they've got a play style already. Ten Hag wanted to play a certain way. He couldn't because of David De Gea. He couldn't because of certain restrictions, okay? Ten Hag, when he gets a few more players in, we'll start to see the play start, but we rebuild incredibly slow. For me, you know, we can criticise Ten Hag. I don't like Bruno on the right-hand side. I don't like a little bit of stubbornness. I don't 100% like the way we play, but then I've got to factor in the injuries. I've got to factor in the things he's got to deal with. I've got to factor in the lack of organisation from those above, the fact that he's been given panic signings. And if he was the manager of Man City or Arsenal, he wouldn't have 4 panic signings. They would have gone out and spent that 30, 40, 50 million to get him over the line to address the Ronaldo situation instead of bringing him back their course, to address the Johnny Evans situation and bringing Kim Min-jae instead. So for me, people are being very negative. I see a lot of people turning on Ten Hag, but just look at it and go, really, is changing the manager going to make us win the treble? Is changing the manager going to make us Premier League champions? Or if we change the manager over and over and over again, and we have this 3-year endless cycle of managers, when actually we're at a point where changing the manager can help the problem, but we'll never be where we want to be unless we make changes higher up at United, unless we make changes above. And I'm passionate with that feeling as well. Smash the likes for Alice, says Gaz. Yeah, big up everybody in the chat. Please do smash that like button. And of course, subscribe down below. If you are Glazers out, smash that like button, because we have got some news on the takeover. We have got some news on the Glazers potentially leaving Manchester United. We have got some, I guess, rather positive news in terms of this could be the way out for the Glazers. And hopefully this will be the end of the Glazers. So I want to get into that, and then I want to get into some things that Mike Phelan has said as well. De Zerbi wouldn't work here either. No manager seems to be able to work here. That's the thing. You could be, unless you're Sir Alex Ferguson, who's some kind of god. You just can't. Alex says, I honestly think Erik ten Hag is the last top quality gaffer we'd sign under these current parasite owners. If they stay, they have to be mental to become our gaffer. And I agree. I think if you are a top manager and you want to make that next step in your career, and you see that all these managers have failed under United, and you see that the Glazer owners are still here at United, and you see that Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp turned down United and dodged that bullet. You know what? Tottenham had a really difficult job signing a manager after Jose Mourinho. They ended up getting Nuno. We will be that club. I think if we sat Ten Hag, yes, we're Man United, yes, we're the biggest club in the world, but actually, Pep wouldn't want to come to us, Klopp wouldn't want to come to us. I don't think De Zerbi would want to come to us. We'd probably end up with Brendan Rodgers if we sat there at Ten Hag, and people like sat Ten Hag, bringing this player, bringing that manager, and I'm like, would they come? Maybe we try bringing someone from Xavi. I don't rate what he's doing at Barcelona. For me, I just think you've got to look at it and go, actually, if you sat Ten Hag, who would realistically come to this club under these owners as well? That I think that's a good point from Alex. I think that's a good comment to make. I think people don't want to come to Manchester United. If you are someone that's ambitious, if you're someone taking the next step in your managerial career, if you're bold like Ten Hag, go to United, but it's a massive risk. Noam says, spot on, Glazers are morons who undermine Ten Hag at every turn. When he only gets 1 in 5 of his plan, you can't judge what Erik ten Hag could be doing for us. Exactly. Thank you very much, Noam, for the super chat. For me, if I generally think that Ten Hag, while stubborn, why some things that I don't agree with, I generally think had he got Harry Kane, had he got Amrabat in earlier, had he got Kim Min-jae, I think we'd be a very different team. Imagine we start the season with Rashford on the left, Harry Kane up top, and either Anthony or Sancho on the right-hand side, okay? Our front three is Kane, Rashford, and Sancho. We're going to say Kane, Rashford, Sancho is the front three, yeah? And then we have Amrabat, Casemiro, Bruno in the midfield. And then we have Kim Min-jae, Martinez, Dalot, Shaw, or Wan-Bissaka, and Onana. Very good squad. And then if there's an injury to Varane, there's Kim Min-jae. If there's an injury to Kim Min-jae, there's Varane. If there's an injury to Martinez, there's Varane. Let's say we had no Johnny Evans. We had no need to play Maguire. We didn't have to play Rashford striker because we got Harry Kane, and then we've got Hojlund on top of Harry Kane. If the Qataris were in, we would have signed Harry Kane, we would have signed Hojlund, we would have signed Amrabat way earlier. We would have signed Kim Min-jae. We would have probably signed Mason Mount. We would have signed Onana. We would have signed who we signed with Amrabat much earlier. Kane probably on top of Hojlund, and of course Kim Min-jae. And you think, well, actually, when you think about it, Amrabat coming in earlier, Kane, Kim Min-jae, what's the 3 biggest issues been? Versus Tottenham Hotspur, we created 4 big chances in the first half. We could, and I generally say this, we could have generally gone 2-0 up against Tottenham Hotspur in the first half. The second half is the worst I've seen Man United play in years. It was absolutely dreadful, and we deserved to lose that game. Not denying that, but with the chances we created in the first half, we could have gone 2-0 up. If we had a striker there to finish off those chances, could have been a very different second half. If you look at the Arsenal game, what really cost us? Johnny Evans, let's be honest. Johnny Evans, Maguire, that cost us. Okay, so you think, well, the 2 games we've lost, centre-back probably wouldn't have lost against Arsenal. Amrabat instead of Eriksen in the midfield probably wouldn't have lost against Arsenal. maybe if we had a strike and we took those chances versus Spurs, as bad as that second half was, we deserve to be a goal up in that first half. And maybe if we'd gone into the second half a goal up, it would have been a very different game. And that is, of course, if, buts and maybes. But my point is, had the Qatari owners come in March, like planned, and Ten Hag got everything that he wanted, we could have been sitting here with 12 points. 12 points from 4 games, top of the league, really positive, really excited for this project. We've lost 2 out of 4 games, 2 away games against the big 6. There's Brighton, there's Bayern Munich coming up. It's particularly worrying games. And yeah, I'm not particularly excited, actually. I'm a little bit scared. I can't lie to you. Evan Ferguson, that guy is unbelievable. And he has been linked to United, and we will talk about that. But, like, you know, we're 4 games into the season. We don't like Bruno on the right. Let's criticise Ten Hag for that. Rightly so. But to think that Ten Hag is the biggest problem at this club, I think is idiocy. The biggest problem at this club is the fact that Ten Hag has been left to make 4 panic signings in 9 months. Think about it. That's what I say. Think about this as well. There are probably not many elite strikers available and willing to come to United, but honestly, if Hojlund doesn't work out, we basically have no striker. True. Now, I think Hojlund will work out. I think Hojlund is an absolutely fantastic player, and I did a tweet about Hojlund, actually. I'll get it up for you. I think Hojlund will work out, and I think he'll work out well with Bruno Fernandes yesterday. I almost was like, I was going to say some stuff to wind up some Bruno haters on Twitter, but I thought, you know what, we're too mature to wind up people on Twitter. We're not. But I did a tweet on Hojlund the other day, actually. I generally think Hojlund will thrive. So I said Rasmus Hojlund is only 20 years of age, and the striker is already a physical monster. The impact he could have at Man United in years to come is scary if he reaches his potential. He only played 20 minutes versus Arsenal, but he really impressed me. We saw versus Arsenal, he displayed hunger, speed, and energy, which was needed. When Rasmus Hojlund came on that pitch versus Arsenal, he brought this newfound energy to United, which was like 100% needed. I love that he battled so hard to win the balls. He put pressure on Gabriel. He was really pushing Gabriel. And you could see that Gabriel didn't like it. He was matching him physically, and Gabriel's a physical guy. And I think with his strength, he offered an outlet because he could hold up the ball. He could hold up the ball until the runners were there, play it onto the runners. And essentially, as I said, you know, Rasmus Hojlund, you know, was only on the pitch 20 minutes, and he only had 10 touches, but he provided Man United with a focal point. And it's crazy as that sounds, the focal point that Rasmus Hojlund provided us versus Arsenal was a massive thing, because his ability to hold up the ball and link with the players, it changed the dynamic of the game. Actually, if you look at the 2 or 3 chances we had in those last 20 minutes, all came through Hojlund. Other than the Rashford goal in the first half, we didn't have any chances in the first half because we weren't being able to keep and retain the ball in the final third to let the runners catch up and play it onto the runners. So, you know, for me, I said with Hojlund, not only does he possess the physical and athletic qualities needed to be a top forward, but from his time at Atalanta, you could see he had technical qualities. He had a good footballing IQ from what I'd analysed of him and what's seen of him. And, you know, he's also very intelligent with his runs. You actually realise that he does create space with his runs because he gets the centre-backs to move towards him, which would open up potentially space for Rashford that we might not see for a little bit because they have to work on that connection or chemistry. But I think, you know, a guy that's hungry, that Ronaldo attitude, I want to score, that can make those runs, that's going to be good in transition. I think Rasmus Hojlund has everything to succeed under Erik Ten Hag. He was really, really good for Denmark the other day. He's got a really good mentality, really mature beyond his age. I really love Rasmus Hojlund. I'm a big admirer of Rasmus Hojlund. I can see his maturity. I can see that he's got a lot of things going for him, and I think he could really, really thrive, you know, this season under Ten Hag. And I think he's 20 years of age. I'm not going to put too much pressure on him. Of course, I feel like I'm probably hyping him up a little bit here. But I think Rasmus Hojlund, he reminds me of Evan Ferguson. He's got that raw potential. He's got the physical attributes needed. He's got the intellectual. He's got the work rate. It's just about having a supportive system around him. And if we sack Ten Hag in 2 months and we play a manager that doesn't want to play the type of football Rasmus Hojlund thrives in, and then Rasmus Hojlund we can't sell, that's when it goes negative. You know, we need that stability for me. I think for me, if Rasmus Hojlund has everything to succeed at United, as long as United can stay a sustainable environment. But unfortunately, we're not a sustainable environment. And one of the reasons I think Rasmus Hojlund will thrive this season is because of Bruno Fernandes. And I saw a Chelsea player comment on my tweet on Rasmus Hojlund laughing, 9 goals, 9 goals. Excuse me, Rasmus Hojlund would have been Chelsea's top goal scorer 2 of the last 3 seasons with 9 league goals. So you Chelsea fan going about 9 goals, 9 league goals, Rasmus Hojlund, he would have been your top bloody scorer. So shut up. But I said this and mostly exaggerate how good Bruno was to wind up some people because I know he played versus Luxembourg. But I said Bruno was unplayable tonight. 3 assists in 57 minutes. He then got a goal. You know, United finally have a striker with Hojlund this season. Someone that's going to be on the box. Someone that's going to be there on the end of chances. And, you know, Bruno with 18 now, actually, goals and assists in 11 games for Portugal, and in the last 12 months has been their standout player. And since the start of last season, Bruno has ranked top in the Premier League for expected assists, key passes, and big chances created. Bruno Fernandes is in a league of his own when it comes to creativity. Had Kevin De Bruyne been fit, he'd probably put up the same game numbers as Bruno. Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, they're no doubt in my mind in a league of their own when it comes to creativity and things like that, as you can see. And I said, look, you know, Bruno being that creative, and if you look at this point here, you know, Man United didn't have a striker last season, and Bruno only recorded 9 assists from an expected assist of 17. 9 from expected assist of 17. No one has underperformed that stat so badly. And that's just nothing about Bruno. That's just something about United not having a forward. So with Hojlund coming in and Bruno actually creating the chances, if Bruno is utilised in the middle, Erik ten Hag, please don't play him on the right wing. I think we're going to see really positive things from Rasmus Hojlund at United, and I'm quite excited to see that. I do apologise if we're getting a little bit of lag here as well. Please do smash the like buttons, guys, and of course subscribe down below as well. Owners are allowed to use personal wealth to offset FFP. We should have got Kane and Kim and Jay Glazers out. Smash the like button if your Glazers out as well. And the real judge of any signing is doing a week in, week out for us in a Man United kit. Any bit of analysis only goes so far. Goes for all signings, says Alex, you spot on. And Diego says, we're on 205 likes, guys, so let's go for 300 likes as well. And hopefully Hojlund works out, but it's still a bit of a risk to overly rely on someone off his age and development level. Spot on. Ten Hag wanted Hojlund to be our Julian Alvarez and Kane to be our Erling Haaland, but unfortunately, I mean, I get that they were both quite expensive and the striker market is very saturated for price, but unfortunately Ten Hag wasn't going to be allowed to get that as well. Scotland are playing tonight. England are playing tonight. I don't really watch much of the international break in all honesty, but I want to get into the takeover news. What I'm doing at the moment, because I realise that my live streams are long and I waffle a lot, is I'm actually at the end of my live streams planning on kind of breaking everything down and like pinning a comment. So I'll know that it's taken me 30 minutes to talk about the takeover. Then it will be pinned in the chat and pinned in the bio of videos from now on. But I want to talk about the takeover, and I want to talk about the Glazers putting out stories and their sources putting out stories. And if my Twitter wants to load, but do you know what? My Wi-Fi has been dreadful. Absolutely, Twitter's absolutely shocking. I feel like the stream's going to cut out. I think someone's. I generally think this. I don't know what's so bad with my Wi-Fi. Shia Lacey, guys. Shia Lacey. I'm going to say that when my Wi-Fi loads. One to watch. Absolute baller. One to watch. But let me, my bloody screen's gone. Let me share this with you guys. Let me get into the takeover story as well. This is what I've said. The Man United sale was very much on. So sources close to the Glazer family deny any claims the process to sell United has been shelved. So reports have come out today from the Glazers. The Glazer sources are very much informing people the club is still up for sale. The Glazer sources very much out there, very much informing people, look, Man United is still up for sale. Look, Man United is still up for sale. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da. Do you know why? Do you know why they're doing this? I'll tell you something. Do you know why they're doing this? Because they saw that the report that's saying they were going to stay put the stock price down 600 million in a day. The Glazers are making sure now, if anyone's asking them, if any journalists are coming to them, the takeover is still up for sale. So we've got confirmation today from a source by the Glazers that the club is still up for sale. They still intend on selling the club. The problem is, I believe the club is up for sale. I believe the Glazers are still intent on selling the club because it makes no logical sense for them to stay with the financial predicament we're in. But isn't it interesting that the Glazers are really trying to use their sources to inform people the club is still on the market and they're still looking to sell? It's interesting when they were putting out just the other day that they weren't looking to sell. The reason the Glazers are making sure that we all know that they still want to sell the club, and all these reports are coming out today that the Glazers still want to sell the club, is they want to get that stock price back up. They want to get the value of the club. They want to get the share price right back up. And do you know what is interesting about this? And I read this somewhere, and I might be wrong. I might be wrong on this, but I read somewhere that essentially the only value Sir Jim has over Qatar is if the Manchester United stock price is high at the time of the Glazers 2 years under Sir Jim. I read somewhere that the Glazers, Sir Jim's bid would enable the Glazers to stay 2 years at United, and then they would buy out whatever the stock. Sir Jim would buy out whatever the stocks are worth. So if the stocks are really low because the Glazers stay, even in 2 years' time after the Glazers staying, if the stocks are still really low, then Sir Jim would buy out the remaining stocks of the Glazers, and they might get a lot less from Sir Jim than Qatar. If Sir Jim buys the club, and obviously the Glazers are there for 2 years under Sir Jim, and we do really well, and the stocks at Man United are really high, and the share price is really high, and Sir Jim has to buy out the remaining ones of those, the Glazers could get more money from Sir Jim than Qatar. I read that somewhere. I don't know if that is true, but I think the indication that the share price is very low, and the fact that if the Glazers stay, the share price is very low, and the fact that I think Sir Jim enabling the Glazers to stay would make the share price very, very low, and Class A shareholders are threatening to sue the Glazers if they give it to Sir Jim. I do think the Glazers are in a position where they kind of know they need to sell to Qatar, but they want more money from Qatar because they know 6 billion is nothing to Qatar. It's like £6 to us, and I think it's all a game to really try and get a bigger and better offer out the Qataris, in all honesty. I do. But I do think these reports coming out today, very heavy reports coming out today, saying United's still up for sale, the takeover's still on, United's still up for sale, the takeover's still on this, the takeover's still on that. Now, what I do want to say on that is I just think they're deliberately making us know the takeover's still up for sale. They're deliberately letting us know the club's still up for sale, the takeover's still on, because I think they want that share price to go up. I generally believe that the club will probably end up being sold, but it might take a while because I just don't see who's going to be stupid enough to give the Glazers $2 billion investment to allow them to stay at the club. I generally believe that they will leave, but I think they're really pushing out stories that the club is still up for sale because they want to get that share price up. I think that's what I generally think as well. But yeah, big up everybody in the chat as well. Keep smashing the likes, keep subscribing. On 231 likes, guys. 19 likes away from 250 likes. We've got 800 people watching. Please do smash the like button as well. And Alice, this is just to get the share price up, and this is what I'm saying as well. Glazers should be locked up legally for stock manipulation because Man Utd stock is publicly traded. You know what? I reckon there's some investigations going into that, but I don't think they've done enough to charge them in a court of law to say you are guilty of this, because there's so much news that comes out as well. And I don't know how this takeover is dragging on. The bidders aren't faffing for their antics, aren't falling for their antics, and the fact that there are only 2 serious bidders for a club like us says a lot. Yeah, there's 2 serious bidders because everyone knows that there's a lot of work to be done. You're not just paying 6 billion, you have to spend $1 billion clearing the debt, another 2 billion investment. And Alex is absolutely spot on. You know, for me, the takeover is still dragging, and I don't know why it's still dragging. They've got 2 offers, 2 fair offers. They're not going to get any more. Sir Jim knows that the Glazers need to sell because he knows that they're probably not going to get the investment they want. Qatar know the Glazers need to sell. They're saying, well, we're not going to up our offer anymore. We're already giving you more than the club is worth, and we've got to spend a significant amount of money. Why do you want more? And they're not falling for it. And I think that's what's causing it to delay, because the Glazers are thinking, oh, we want another bid from Qatar. Qatar upped their bid twice when we made them think Sir Jim was winning. But now Qatar went up their bid. They said, take it or leave it last offer. They know they've managed to get Qatar into falling and upping their bid twice. I think they're trying to do it for a 3rd time as well. But honestly, Joel Glazer's the worst Glazer of the lot. Joe and Avram are the worst as well. Avram's got the worst hair. Joel's got the worst face. And it's on when it suits them. It's off when it suits them as well. Can't go by media reports mostly spent. The only people I can somewhat believe on Takeover News is Reuters, is Mike Keegan, is Fabrizio Romano. Other than that, I really, really can't, believe a lot of Takeover News. A lot of it is that kind of take it or leave it with a pinch of salt kind of things. Now, I want to quickly go through a few things that Mike Phelan has said on Manchester United, because I realised I have spent most of this live stream waffling, and I've still got a little bit of information to go into. So I want to quickly read out what Mike Phelan has said on Ronaldo staying, the dressing room issues at Manchester United, and more, because I have spent a vast amount of this live stream waffling. But Mike Keegan said this on Ronaldo. He said a few things on Ronaldo. He said essentially on Ronaldo came to United and he didn't want the standards to drop. He wanted the standards to come up. And sometimes you lose people along the way when that happens. I remember certain times when he pushed hard and he didn't get much of a reaction and there was frustration. Mike Phelan, getting them confused now, said basically Ronaldo fell out with the dressing room when he came to United because he wanted some of the players to work harder. I remember Ronaldo did an interview and he said players these days, when you criticise them, they get offended. When I was criticized, and then Ronaldo said, but when I was a young player and criticized by Roy Keane, I wanted to learn from him. Ronaldo said, I knew Roy Keane, he was the very best. I knew this player was the very best. So when they criticize me, I take that criticism on the chin and I learn from it. Ronaldo said, as an old player, when I go to United and I criticize the young players at United, they get angry with me. They can't handle criticism. And that is an arrogance in the dressing room that I think has cost United, is when we criticize certain players in our club can't handle criticism. And Ronaldo was criticizing the players like, work harder in training, because he was saying, I want you to do better. You can be better. But this player would then turn on Ronaldo. Mike Phelan said a few interesting things about Ronaldo's return to United. Mike Phelan said this. He said another key factor in the standards across Mike Phelan's 2 spells at United was the impact of Ronaldo. The former assistant revealed that during the Portuguese forward's return, Old Trafford lost some players due to standards Ronaldo asked for in training. He lost the dressing room. Phelan said the second time round that Ronaldo came, he came in a lot older, a lot more opinionated, and a lot more strong-willed. He had massively high standards and was terrific to work with, but I'd say a tougher mindset. He had been at Man United. He had been at Portugal's ever-present. He had been at Madrid. Ronaldo came in with a much tougher mindset than most of our squad. Phelan also said on Ronaldo, I liked it because he didn't want his standards to drop. He wanted other people's standards to come up. And sometimes you lose a few people along the way when that happens. I remember certain times when he pushed and pushed hard and he didn't get much reaction or response. And there was frustration from Ronaldo. He said on Ronaldo, when you deal with the top people, it's about them and where they can finish and where they can get to. They want to look back and go, wow, that was successful. And he probably realized, and I don't know, as I never had that conversation with him, that he couldn't do it at United, so wanted challenges elsewhere, says Phelan. Well, he went to Saudi Arabia, but he realized that United weren't a club that actually were interested in getting back to the very top. And that isn't a fault of many people. It's a fault of the Glazers. He came back to United and he was like, yeah, those Glazers really don't give a shit. They're not interested in getting back to the top in the slightest. So that's what Mike Phelan said. Now, Mike Phelan said a few interesting things as well. He said on Ralf Rangnick, it was difficult for Ralf Rangnick, not difficult for the point of Ralf being manager, but the circumstances of him being manager. It wasn't easy because Man United doesn't need a caretaker manager. It needs a proper manager. And I'm not saying Ralf wasn't a proper manager, but he came in under this caretaker manager role, having been at one of the smaller clubs. I always thought it would be difficult for him to establish momentum to sort out the players in a short space of time. And Phelan says the reason he thinks that Rangnick didn't succeed is these players weren't going to be interested in listening to a caretaker manager. And Mike Phelan also said on Ralf Rangnick that he didn't have he doesn't know what conversations that Rangnick had to get the role, but Rangnick did try work hard and it didn't work out in the interest of both parties. He said that Rangnick was fantastic as a guy in the environment, and he was in before becoming a manager. He does that director of football role really well. He was successful at that. Coming in as a manager, he had done that role before, but it was a stepping into something turbulent. He said that, Rangnick would have been better off the field. And I think Ralf Rangnick would have been better off the field. And the reason I was excited when Man United appointed Ralf Rangnick wasn't because he was the caretaker manager. I had no interest in Ralf Rangnick being the caretaker manager. All my interest in Ralf Rangnick was the fact that I knew that he was going to come in and work with the director of footballs and work in the consultancy role and work with the board. And I got so excited when we signed Ralf Rangnick. And the one thing he's good at, he never got to do at United because we sacked him because he called out the owners. Now, before I end this live stream, I do want to say this. Shea Lacey, one to watch, 2 assists with his left foot against Portugal last week, 2 goals with his right foot against Spain this week. Shea Lacey's a special talent. I said 2 years ago, watch out for Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho. The 2 are probably the most promising academy players. I said to you guys 2 years ago, before they even touched the first team, those are the ones to watch. Shea Lacey right now is the one to watch. Shea Lacey and Amar Ibrahimovic, they are the ones to watch. He's a right winger with this Anthony situation, with this Sancho situation, and it looks like they're making up. Shea Lacey, he is one to come through. He's a name to keep an eye on. Google this guy, watch this guy. Shea Lacey's all I'm going to say. But anyway, Adam said Rangnick told us to sign ballers and they ignored him. And this is the thing. The reason I got excited about Man United bringing in Ralf Rangnick was because United planned to bring in Ralf Rangnick to do the consultancy role. Ralf Rangnick says Julian Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez, 25 million combined, sign both those players. No, we're not doing it. Ralf Rangnick suggested many top players, ignored. And look, that we've only got ourselves to blame for. That is the prime example of Manchester United incompetence, of the board, of the owners. Ralf Rangnick told us Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez. Imagine how much better we'd be if we'd have got Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez for a combined 30 million just over a year ago. Imagine our squad right now, because we could have used Enzo Fernandez and we could have used Julian Alvarez in those opening games. Imagine it. It would have been 26 million, I believe, for those 2. Ralph Rangnick went to the board and said, do this. They ignored him. So we were going to get Ralph Rangnick to be in the consultancy role. He made some suggestions, we ignored him, we sacked Ralph Rangnick. What a waste. If we'd have actually used Ralph Rangnick to what he is good at, which is picking out talents, we could have been in a much different position. We really could have as well. But look, I'm going to end the live stream here. Please do smash the like buttons, guys. Subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video. If any news comes out, there will be a bonus late night video tomorrow. Late night video tonight. Could be a video up about 11 p.m. tonight, depending on news that comes out. If not, I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time, and bye.